What's going on, guys? This is Jeff Matson, and this is my first actual WordSesh. So it's kind of nice. It's a nice little difference of WordSesh versus WordCamps because you guys actually can't tell if I'm wearing pants or not. So it's a little more convenient there, and plus I can, have a beer while I'm working. So today we are going to talk about choosing a WordPress host. We're going to try to make sure that it is as non-biased as possible, although you guys definitely know that I work for InMotion Hosting, and I'd like to sit here and say choose InMotion and that's it, but really, there's different hosts for different people. So we're going to make sure that you get the best host for your specific needs. I do have some slides here. We're going to jump over to those here now, and we'll kind of go over that. So let me just jump over to those slides here. And you guys should hopefully be able to see that now. And we're going to look at choosing a WordPress host. Now, of course, you can follow me at the Jeff Matson, as well as I work for InMotion Hosting. You can also follow InMotion Hosting at InMotion Hosting. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's figure out how to choose a WordPress host. So first off, you want to know your expectations. So know what you want to pay. Know what kind of support you need. And my dogs are fighting in the background. Sorry about that. But know what kind of support you need. Know what kind of uptime you're expecting, and know the features that you need. The uptime you're expecting, I can already answer that for you, is 100% uptime. You're never going to get that. It's not possible to get 100% uptime, but you want a 99.999 is a really good rating to go for. As far as pricing, understand, do you want something dirt cheap? Is a big hosting is you do not have a big budget? Do you have a huge budget? Does it matter? Do you need support? Do you actually, are you going to be calling them? Are you a sysadmin that doesn't need support? Or are you a kind of person that is going to need some support at some point? So keep that in mind. Make sure that you have that kind of support that you need. Then make sure that you have the features that you need. So if you're on a shared host, for example, make sure they have WP CLI if you need WP CLI. Make sure that they're not going to absolutely kill you if you use too many resources. Go from there, figure out what kind of features you need. Now, so your job is to know WordPress, and that's what people pay you for. And your web host is paid to know the servers. They need to know the servers. If they don't know what they're doing, then why are they even bothering being a web host? A good host is going to keep your site running fast and secure all the time. Your site does not need to all of a sudden slow down to absolutely nothing and just go to crap, within a month of you signing up. It doesn't need to happen. They need to run fast, and you need to not get hacked. If you get hacked because of some fault of your host, ditch that host. Please leave that host immediately. And your job is to keep your site running efficiently. Your host job is not to keep your site running efficiently. If you got crap code running on your site, it's not your job. Your host job is not to fix your code. Your host job is to run your site. So understand what your job is and what your host job is. Now, you want to ensure that your host can handle you in the next 5 years. What I mean by that is hopefully you're not on the same plan. Hopefully you don't start off at a really basic hosting plan and are still on a basic hosting plan in 5 years. If that happens to you, man, sorry. Whether you move up to a basic shared plan, up to a basic VPS, up to a mid-class, to a larger VPS, and then up to, a smaller dedicated server to a large commercial class dedicated server. Make sure that your host can take care of you each step of the way, because switching between hosts really sucks. It's okay to move to one host, because you're not satisfied with the service that your original host is offering. But moving from one host to another host to another host just because your site got too big is a pain. I've done it even before I worked at InMotion, and it's really not fun. When you're moving within the same host, typically your host will move before you, so you don't even have to put out that effort to do it. They should just be able to accommodate your growth in each step of the way. Now, let's take a look at shared hosting. It's the basic of the basic. It's your cheap little $5 a month plans, and sometimes even less than that. It's good for low traffic sites, real basic brand new sites that don't get a whole lot of traffic, kind of playing around with some stuff. Maybe you just launched a brand new product that you're not really kicking off too much yet. Shared host is usually the way to go because it's got low pricing, but the biggest downside to that is that you're not going to get a whole lot of the features that you're looking for. You're not typically going to get Nginx. You're not typically going to get an advanced varnish cache there. You're not typically going to get a whole lot of other features that you need. You're not going to be able to change PHP actual different distributions of PHP, things like that. And you're going to have multiple individuals sharing the same server. And that's going to really hurt you at times because, of course, there's no way to 100% avoid server spikes. There's really not. There's certain ways to negate it, but you're going to have load spikes here and there because you have multiple individuals sharing on the same server. So, not to say that load spikes are an okay thing. They suck. They're not good things, but they're going to happen on shared servers. There's really no way to avoid it. Now, next up, you're going to have your VPS hosting. It's going to allow for your own virtualized environment, so you're going to be able to have your own little thing going on in there. You're going to be able to have root access to the server if you need to make any custom changes to it, as well as your host will be able to make those custom changes for it if you need it. If you need an advanced varnish configuration or something like that, they can make it without having the possibility of it impacting other users on the server. But you're still sharing a physical machine, so if that machine explodes, the same would happen if you're on a dedicated server, though. If the dedicated server explodes, which of course is very rare, then you're still going to have those kind of issues. It's cheaper than a dedicated. You're going to run less than if you are on your own specific box, but it's going to be a little more expensive than shared hosting. And by a little more expensive, you're usually looking, depending on the service, a managed VPS is going to run you probably around 30, 40 bucks. Of course, an unmanaged VPS can sometimes be 5 to 10 bucks, like some hosts offer. Really just kind of depends on what you need, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it is going to allow you to more customization, and you're going to have less resource allocation than on a dedicated server. So you're going to have, instead of having a full 4 CPU cores allocated to yourself, you may have only a single CPU core, maybe 2 CPU cores, something like that there. I'm actually going to take these headphones out because they're driving me nuts a little bit now. But now we're going to take a look at dedicated hosting. Dedicated hosting, you're going to have your own box. It's your own environment. You can do whatever you want with that box. If you blow up the box and the box explodes, catches on fire, as long as it doesn't catch the whole data center on fire, it's only impacting yourself there. And it's going to be your most expensive option, of course. And those can go up in tiers, everywhere from 75 bucks up to several hundred or thousands. You're gonna really be able to customize absolutely anything you want with it, and then you're gonna be able to handle your high traffic sites and really go from there. Now, we'll also take a look at WordPress managed hosting. Now, it's not something we offer, but a lot of different web hosts offer it, and they're going to do things like handle all your updates for you. So if you need to update all your plugins on your site, if you need to update WordPress core itself, they'll be able to handle that for you so that you have more time for other things. They're going to be more focused on WordPress sites, but within that, you're only going to be able to use WordPress sites on a WordPress managed host. So if you have a client on a WordPress managed host and all of a sudden they say, all right, I want a Joomla site, well, you're going to have to jump host. Or even if they want just something real basic to add to their site that's not running WordPress specifically, then you're going to have to kind of figure out some other solution to do that. So that's kind of a downside, but it's not terribly bad. Your pricing varies a whole lot. So the pricing can vary. I want to say the cheapest one I know of is around $8.99, as well as $25.99 and so on up. So it really just varies on your price a lot. There's not really a set particular range for it. You're typically going to be within a shared or VPS environment, so you're not typically going to get your own dedicated server when you're on a managed WordPress host. You're going to be within some kind of shared or VPS environment, so you'll still be affected by other users potentially being with a managed WordPress host. And you're going to have little to no server-side customization. I have heard of some managed WordPress hosts that are allowing for additional customization, but for the most part, the majorities are not allowing for that additional customization that you may want. And of course, you're limited to WordPress. Now, typically these slides were actually originally written when I was when they needed a volunteer real quick to take care of this. You know, I had very, very little time to prepare. Originally, these slides were actually written for, you know, at a WordCamp. They were originally written for WordCamp Philly. So if you're not a sysadmin, you need some kind of support. You need some kind of things for server maintenance. You need something for security updates. You need something for server-related questions and custom configurations. So what happens in the event of, so we saw Heartbleed, or the bash bug. You know, if that happened, we know about that stuff a lot of times before it gets released to the public. And the reason behind that is that we need to be able to offer support. We need to be able to patch those things. If you're on a non-managed VPS, for example, they're not going to be able to do that. You're going to need to know about that information before it even hits. A lot of times, these things happen before any fix is available whatsoever within any public repos. So typically, if you're not a sysadmin and you're not able to keep up with all these things extremely quickly, then you're going to want some kind of support to maintain security-related things, to maintain the server in general in case something explodes, and to really just answer any questions that you might have. Unless you're dealing with servers on a daily basis and know exactly what you're doing at all times, you're going to have some kind of questions somewhere. When you call support with any host, and I highly recommend calling their support before you even buy something from them. Call support and find out how much information they know. Quiz them and quiz them and quiz them, and determine what kind of information that they know. Their job is to know servers, just as your job is to know WordPress. If an individual called you, one of your clients called you and said, hey, answer this question about WordPress, and you don't know the answer to it, you're going to look like an asshole. To be completely honest with you, you're going to look like an idiot. If you ask, so your host needs to be able to answer those same kind of questions about their servers. Make sure that they don't look like an idiot when you ask them a question. Now, granted, is your first tier of support going to know the answer to every single question? No, probably not. But 90% of the issues that you ask them should be resolved within the first level of support. And what I mean by that is that if you ask how to make any change or anything like that to your configuration, make sure that they have some idea of what to do. Now, and a lot of times when you need a major server configuration change, a lot of times they are going to escalate it to system admins and everything like that because, you know, the individual you're talking to is just a first level tech support. But make sure that somebody is able to answer your question extremely quickly. And response times are critical. If you wait longer than an hour for your ticket to get responded to, something's going wrong. If you wait longer than 5 minutes on the phone for somebody to answer it, something is severely wrong. You shouldn't wait longer than 5 minutes. I'd say 10, 15 minutes if an entire data center is down. We had an issue not too long ago where we had an issue with our East Coast data center. There's a couple things going on there, and we had a little bit of downtime. Even during that downtime, when almost every one of our customers in the East Coast data center was calling us, we were still answering the phone within 15 minutes. That's how it should be with all hosts. And I'm not just saying that we're the latest and greatest awesome. I'm sure other hosts do the same thing, is answer the call within 15 minutes. But if you find a host that's not answering your phone call extremely quickly, drop them. Because what happens when you have something catastrophic going on with your site and they don't answer the phone? If you have dirt cheap hosting, and I get these emails all the time of, yeah, we're offering hosting for $1 a month. Don't do it. It doesn't matter how cheap it is. Don't touch it. The reason why is it's cheap for a reason. Cheap hosting is cheap. A 99 yeah, cheap hosting, and my girlfriend just chimed in over here on the back of it. She said like a 99-cent cheeseburger.
Why is that cheeseburger 99 cents?
Why is that cheeseburger 99 cents? You go to McDonald's. Are you getting a high-end cheeseburger? Are you getting the same cheeseburger you're going to get at a steakhouse or even, even Applebee's? No. It's a 99-cent cheeseburger, and they're using the cheapest meat that they can possibly use in the world. And they don't care what happens to your health later. So don't use cheap hosting. They can't afford their support, they can't afford performance, and they can't afford to keep their servers up. Sysadmins are not cheap. Sysadmin costs a lot of money to watch your servers 24 hours a day. If they're charging a dollar a month to run your site, then that means they're $1 a month for you. They've got to make what, $1,000 to pay for that server itself. So that means you're sitting on 1,000 people on that server, and that's if it's a small server. If it's a bigger server, they need a whole lot more of the money than that. So yeah, it's usually a big issue. You don't want to go with $1 a month hosting. Uptime is a very critical thing. And always, always, always check the uptime of any host before you go with them. And obviously pay attention to your uptime of your site when you're on your servers. In January 2013, Apple went down for 50 minutes, resulting in a $5 million profit loss. Now, the majority of people watching this right now are probably not making $50 million in 50 minutes or $5 million in 50 minutes. But what if it's $5? What if your site went down for 50 minutes and you lost $5? Well, it's still $5. If I told everybody I was that was watching this that I'd give them $5, they'd definitely go for it. They wouldn't question it a bit. So if you go down, you could be losing $5. You could be losing $10. You could be losing $5 million. Who knows? But you won't know if your site's down. Now, if your hosting is down, you're also losing customers. That customer that could have potentially paid something and then could have continued on and continued on and continued on purchasing your different services, you've completely lost them. They're not going to purchase that first service. They're not going to purchase that second one. They're not going to purchase that third one. Why? Because you're already down to begin with. They've already forgotten about you. They don't care. Now, the same thing, if your site's down, if your site's slow, that's going to kill you as well. The reason behind that is that when somebody hits your site, if it takes too long, they're already closing it out. Now, Amazon reported that they have a sales increase of 1% for every 100 millisecond speed increase. If you increase your site 400 milliseconds, you just increase your sales by 4%. Doesn't seem like a lot, but if I told you I was going to pay you 4% of whatever your salary is, you take it. So use that extra speed to your advantage. Make more money. Yahoo traffic increased by 9% for every 400 milliseconds of speed improvement. So you get that extra traffic too. So now you're going to see those extra sales. You're going to see that extra traffic. And if you can do it right, everything's going to run smooth. You're going to make a whole lot more money. Nobody's going to wait for your stupid slow site to load. And I have another talk that I do, and you can definitely pull up the slides on that. Further optimizing your site and determining how that is. And we'll go over that a little bit later if we want. And Mozilla also saw 60 million downloads a year increase by speeding pages up for an extra 2.2 seconds. That's a huge, huge, huge amount of speed right there going on. So definitely pay attention to that for sure. Secure your site. I can't say this enough. Secure your site. Stop running insecure sites. Stop using insecure servers. It's not a good thing. Not at all. Does your host actively watch for hacks? Ask them it. Ask them this same question and ask if they actually actively watch for hacks. Do they employ extra security methods? Are they storing password in plain text? I shit you not, this happened. It has been determined at one point that I found that somebody else was storing their passwords in plain text on a server. It's not good. Every other user on that server was at risk at that point. Don't store your passwords in plain text at all. And believe it or not, some people actually do this. There are actually hosts out there, and unfortunately I'm not going to give you the information on who, but I have seen it. Do they actively run security audits on their servers? Do they just set up a server, set it and forget it? Or are they actually paying attention to what goes on at that server at all times? Are you well protected from other users? If you're running mod PHP by default, all of your users, all PHP is executed as the same user and group. Yes. Meaning, if you execute a PHP script, that PHP script is executing as a particular user, which can also execute as another user on the server and potentially cause issues and potentially access their information. So make sure that they are actively protecting yourself from other users on shared hosting. Do they have additional protection from brute force attacks? I see this a lot, and some people can definitely complain. Some people complain from us. They're like, oh, I'm blocked out of my WordPress admin. I don't know why. Well, it's because you're brute forcing your own site. Stop brute forcing your own site. It won't be a problem. But it happens. And, you know, it can sometimes be a pain, but all in all, those users are much, much, much more secure because we've put additional security methods on the server. So make sure that whatever host you're going for actively protects from brute force attacks. They are very critical. They will take down an entire gigantic shared server. The biggest shared server you can think of, it will be taken down by brute force attacks. It's crazy. So make sure that you keep all of your information as secure as possible at all times. Marketing buzzwords are for suckers. You need to know what they mean. If you use a particular buzzword, such as we optimize, we have this particular super awesome, crazy, great optimization. I named it the beer optimization. It's awesome. It makes your site so much faster. But what the hell is the beer optimization? What is that? They should be able to accurately explain what that particular optimization is that they're promoting. If they can't give you an information, it doesn't actually exist. If they say, I have this particular super optimization, and they can't tell you what that optimization actually does, it doesn't need to be there. It's just a bunch of crap to get you to buy something. Don't fall for it. Everybody uses everybody uses marketing buzzwords. Absolutely everybody does. I don't blame a single host for using it. But if you're going to use marketing buzzwords, have actual information to back it up. And what I mean by that is there's a particular marketing buzzword that we use called max speed zones. And sounds great, sounds awesome, sounds like you're going to get a ton of speed off of it. And you do. You do get actually extra speed. But what that is that simply means that we have multiple data centers in multiple locations, and we match your content based on the location that you're primarily going to be serving it from. So if it's on the East Coast, if you have a local business in the East Coast, obviously we serve you in an East Coast data center. Same with West Coast, blah, blah, blah. But we're able to at least explain that. If you call up the host and say, hey, what does this mean? And they don't give you the answer, and even their tier 1 should be able to give you an answer. If they can't give an answer, they're full of crap. Don't touch that host. Run away fast. You want to check out honest reviews and not paid reviews. There's a lot of people that are paid to provide reviews. Every host does it. I won't deny it. We have affiliates that are paid to get people to sign up. Every host does it. We do it. I can name a million other hosts that do the same thing. But when you're looking at reviews, they're not necessarily because they're just getting paid more. A lot of times it is because they genuinely recommend them. And the reason why is if we paid somebody, for example, for a sign up, an affiliate came to us and said, hey, here's a sign up, whatever, and they signed up for it. And we paid them X number of dollars. And that person gets that person that they recommended all of a sudden decides that they say all right, yeah, this host sucks, whatever, and they cancel. They no longer get that money. So why would they recommend a host that people are going to continuously cancel on? They won't. So paid reviews aren't necessarily all bad because they are still recommending the host that they recommend. But be careful. Always, always, always be careful. Know who's recommending the host. It's a random guy on the internet that you don't know any background about. He's just all of a sudden spamming your Twitter. don't touch that host. Run away extremely fast. Actually, if anybody randomly tweets at you and you have no idea what they want and they want you to click on a link, obviously you're going to run away fast. Same thing with any hosting recommendations. You want to make sure that that individual that's recommending that host is extremely reputable. You want to do your homework and your research, and the best sources are all around you. So I'm taking a look at the WordSesh chat right now, and if anybody says, okay, fine, check this out, boom, there's either going to be people that agree with them or disagree with them. And go off of that data. Find out why people like a host, why people don't like a host, and build your knowledge off of that. Because if somebody asks me, of course I'm going to say InMotion. I work for them. But ask somebody else. Say, hey, what do you think about InMotion? What do you think about HostGator? What do you think about Bluehost? What do you think about WP Engine? Whatever. Just ask people. They're all around you, and they'll be able to provide you the best information as possible. And we are opening up for questions. So if anybody's got any questions, I will be happy to answer them. What is your top 5 hosts for WordPress? I don't necessarily know. That's a really good question. Eduardo, I'm sorry, I can't quite pronounce your last name. He asked that. You know what? We're going to answer that. Maybe we won't. I don't know. I'm an employee of a company. Unfortunately, I can't quite answer that. I will say that there are really good hosts out there. There's a ton out there. If I was to go, see, I can't quite answer that one, and I really wish I could. Ask me privately. We might be able to talk about that. I will say I can say number 1 for InMotion, but I don't know how much I can actually discuss about other hosts. Another one what I got here from Peter Kralin is Varnish Memcache APC plus plugin cache feels somewhat overcached. Any idea? Personally, I definitely cache through Varnish for sure. Caching plugins, yes, I do recommend on top of Varnish just because it'll cache that other static data on top of it. Memcache, Memcache and APC, you're getting a little crazy there. APC is a good idea. I do recommend APC on top of that too. Really, it does feel like a lot, but go more based on how your site feels. Check out performance, removing and re-adding those things. See what you get. See, kind of pay more attention to your server loads and kind of see what you get there. For your particular site, I obviously can't give you a recommendation. It's really going to vary individually on each site. I see another question here that says, what are your thoughts on WordPress security plugins to secure your website? And that was actually asked by WordSesh. I highly recommend iTheme Security. Chris Wegman is an awesome guy. He works really, really, really hard over at iThemes to make sure that iTheme Security keeps things secure. I also highly recommend Brute Protect. They're insanely good at predicting brute force attacks before they come in. They will block the majority of brute force attacks before it ever even comes close. Security Cloud Proxy, I also recommend highly because it just offers amazing blocks on the DNS level, so requests aren't even coming to the server in the slightest. Highly recommend that as well. What else we got here? What are some WordPress specific configurations on hosting? Some companies claim they are WordPress host. It's going to vary. A lot of times it's running Nginx and individual PHP tweaks and things like that. There's usually a lot of heavy Varnish caching that's made specifically for WordPress sites. It's going to cache pretty much every data that's repeatable. I don't work for a WordPress managed host, so I can't give you 100% inside details, but there are a lot of individuals that can. A lot of times the configurations are mostly due to protecting from brute force attacks. There are a lot of advanced caching and things like that that are going to give you that extra speed boost. So it's really going to vary on that. I don't have direct details, but I'm sure there's probably somebody from a WordPress managed host sitting in that chat that could probably give you a little bit of a better answer for that. And unless we have actually any more questions, actually there might be another one here. All right. If I have a low traffic site / blog, should I use a cheaper host? Yes and no. And there's kind of two answers for that. There's cheaper hosts, but make sure that you're getting what you want for your money. So if I'm paying $5 a month with one host versus $5 a month for another host, what is one providing me that another isn't? What am I getting out of even a difference between a $10 host for a $5 host? What am I getting in the difference of that $5? Is the difference between, for example, two hosts are exactly the same, but one has WP CLI, and that's $5 versus $10. Do you want that? Is WP CLI worth an extra $5 a month for you? If it's not, go with the $5 host. It really just depends on your individual needs as an individual user that's hosting a site there, and what specifically that you want. So I would just kind of go with that general direction, and I'm actually going to pop my face up here a little bit because I just realized I was still screen sharing. But it really depends on what you particularly want for your site. Determine what features features that you're getting or losing by going with a cheaper host, and then go from there and see if that's worth the difference, the price difference. Let's see here. This is any tips on minimizing server load when hitting the new REST API, possibly quite frequently with a SaaS app. Data can't be cached. What else can be done? I don't have an answer for that. I haven't extensively tested that yet. I'm actually launching a couple new products on a freelance level that's going to heavily use the REST API. So I will have an answer for that within the next month or two. But unfortunately, I don't have a ton of answers for that because I haven't heavily tested it yet on my end, at least. Are most hosts setting up WordPress-specific hosting configurations because of the demand? Most definitely. A lot of hosts are doing it specifically because of the demand. There's a huge demand for it. And the reason behind the demand is that there's a lot of individuals that are doing a Google search for WordPress host. And they're coming up number 1 because they're a WordPress managed host. And then that person hits the site and goes, oh shit, they handle my updates for me, they handle this, they handle that. It's running quick. Awesome, great. Yeah, it's definitely because of the demand. It's greatly because of the demand. There's a huge demand for it, but then again, there's also a huge demand for a host that doesn't manage everything for you, that doesn't limit you within the WordPress login. So it really just depends on what specific things that you're wanting, what you're needing. There's a demand one way, there's a demand another way. There's a huge demand for Ferraris. Do we all have them? No. It just depends on what you want and what you need. And even the person that can afford a Ferrari doesn't necessarily get a Ferrari because they want something that they can fit their kids in. Same kind of thing. WordPress managed hosts are run super fast, whereas and other hosts can also run super fast, and with a WordPress managed host, they're more tuned specifically for WordPress, but what happens when you need something else? It really just depends. If you only need a WordPress site on it, WordPress managed hosts are awesome. They handle a lot of things for you. But it depends on where you go and what specific needs that you have individually. But yes, there's a huge demand for WordPress managed hosting for sure. How many $1 hamburgers can I eat? I have a feeling that was Brad there that asked that. And apparently Matt Medeiros loves me. How many $1 hamburgers can I eat? We can test that a little bit later. I will be sure to report back. I'll go ahead and hit up the McDonald's here real quick, and we'll figure that out while I'm trying to rock WordSesh all night here. I'm gonna go with 10, and maybe I'll record a video of it later. How do I get in it? All right, now I know that's Brad. Is how do I get InMotion Hosting slab bracelet? So here are the InMotion Hosting slab bracelets. They do exist. There's also Web Hosting Hub slab bracelets, which is also our other hosting company here. And You can get one by attending a WordCamp. If you follow me on Twitter, you can figure out what WordCamps I'll be at. I always have a gigantic bag full of slab bracelets. We also have, if you happen to be on the West Coast and certain WordCamps, or if you were at WordCamp San Francisco, then there are also WordCamp slab bracelets with built-in flash drives. I don't even have one of those. I want one. So definitely check it out for sure. So just enter WordCamp, and you know, if you're super cool and you really ask me really nicely, and tweet me on Twitter, then I might actually mail you one. Next question. It looks like, what were my dogs fighting about? They've just been getting angry at each other lately, and we're not entirely sure why. It's usually a little tussle here and there. There you go. Let's see here. So what should I expect from a managed host with a dedicated server? They're not WP specialists, but widely respected UK hosts. Should I expect them to be monitoring my site performance regularly or merely managing server updates? They should be managing your, if they consider themselves a managed host, they should be maintaining uptime. They should be maintaining server security. They should be maintaining any updates that needed, as well as they should be going, okay, cool, I need this configuration, done. They may even charge you, even if they charge you an extra $20 because you want something crazy, they need to be providing you all those things. And they need to be providing you with very minimal amounts of extra money. So if your server goes down, you should be able to call them and then just go right back up. If it does go down. Chances are it shouldn't even go down. Managed hosting means that your site stays up. There are people watching it. There are people taking care of it. If a dedicated server goes down in our data center, doesn't matter who owns it or what. If it goes down, we pay attention to it. We know that server went down. We know immediately when it down, and we're looking into it already. That somebody that considers themselves a managed host needs to be doing the same thing. What level of clearance does a person need to walk inside the actual server area of our data centers? Our cages are completely locked. They're locked down. Only individuals that are deemed by us able to walk into our data centers. We do not allow any external people walking in our data centers. They can't touch any of our machines. They can't unlock any of our cages. I do know the outside of the data centers have very specific locks, as well as you get in, there's other locks to get into, and then there's additional locks to get into the cages. They definitely need a whole lot of stuff from us to be able to get in our data centers, for sure. I can't give you exact details, obviously, because that would be a very bad idea. But there's definitely a whole lot to get in the data centers, and it's not just as simple as, hey, I want to get into your data centers, or I want to tour it, or I want to work it in motion and get hired for this position. We won't just let you right into a data center. It doesn't happen that way. We won't immediately even let you touch a server. Says there's a huge need for quality WordPress hosting in non-English speaking countries like Norway. Are companies like InMotion looking at those markets? I don't have any exact information on if our owners may be looking in those markets or not. I really don't have those exact. I really wouldn't be able to provide you that information. But there is, I'm sure there's definitely a need for it, and I'm sure there's plenty of people looking at it, and I'm glad that you're bringing that up, because it's something I can bring up to my bosses. The biggest issue in that is that, being a U.S.-based company, it's really hard. It would really be hard to find, for example, Norwegian-speaking people that are able to come into our offices, or really be able to open up an entire office in Norway. It'd be extremely difficult, of course. So while it's an awesome idea, it would be extremely difficult. I think it would be able to be pulled off. It would be outstanding. I would just absolutely love to see it. And shit, my laptop just let me pull this. My secondary laptop that I have up here just died. So let me pull up the secondary WordSesh here. So yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I would like to see it. I would definitely like to see it a lot. Unfortunately, it's just kind of one of those things that, unless they're unless there's an individual Norwegian company, it's going to be kind of hard for a U.S. based company to jump over there because of the individual costs. Let's see here. Are all the questions? Oh no, they're there. Okay. Where do you think the future of web hosting is heading? Particularly in light of tools, HashiCorp keeps turning out, Vagrant, Surf, Console, etc. The container services like Docker. You know, I think it's going to keep going the way it is. I think it's just getting to get faster and faster technology. What I would like to see is eventually, I would definitely like to see quantum computing go to hosting. Unfortunately, you can get faster and faster servers, but you can't necessarily get faster and faster bandwidth. I think really right now we're kind of limited. We're kind of limited on bandwidth. You can only send data so fast, and so you can only provide information so fast. Now, things like Vagrant and things like that, it makes things a whole lot easier to obviously deploy your content. I would like to see direct connections with Vagrant a lot more. I would like to see your host basically being able to, by default, as something offered by a host, be able to sync up with your Vagrant information just by clicking one button. So if you have a VVV instance, and be able to just go, all right, cool, host sucks it all up and throws it on the server. A lot of users, believe it or not, there's a ton of users that actually still have dial-up. Now, of course, they're not developers, but they're running dial-up. I want to say my first web development gig was in 2005, I want to say, and we were actually developing sites for dial-up. Now, of course, now we're almost 9 years later, or we are 9 years later, almost 10 years later. But there's still people with dial-up. There's still people that aren't able to get a fast internet connection because they're way out in the woods and they're running things like HughesNet. They're still not able to get to the content. So I mean, I definitely would like to see things like that are. I would like to see easy synchronization from local hosting local development environments to hosts a little bit easier. But I say we're just gonna kind of move the flow and kind of get a little bit faster and faster as things go. What do we got? Anything else? I think we're done. We'd go to questions. All right. Well, we're right at 45 minutes, and Brad was telling me he was going to yell at me if I went too long. So if anybody's got one more question, and I see
I'm gonna start yelling.
The official WordSesh says I have one more question. So what do we have? We have one more. We have one more. No. No more questions. All right. But where do I buy my hats? I just saw that. I just saw that in the chat. Where do I buy my hats? Actually, my girlfriend that I've been with for 5 years, so almost a wife at this point, she bought this hat in particular in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, right out in the mountains. It's a good old mountain man hat. A bunch of hippies out there, and they hooked me up with this hat. PHP great version or greatest version? Worst version. Come on now. We need to move on from the world. We need to not have old dilapidated crap. But yes, PHP version added a lot of PHP 5.2 added a lot of great awesome things. However, PHP 5.2, please for the love of God, stay away from it. All right. So where are we at? I think we're good. And unless anybody has any other questions, unless WordSesh is going to kick me off now. No, we're good. All right. I don't know if I'm supposed to close this or if Brad's supposed to close this. We'll kill it. Thanks, guys. This has been Jeff Matson with InMotion Hosting. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at @TheJeffMatson, as well as InMotion Hosting at InMotion Hosting. Also, I do have one other thing. I do have a coupon code for anybody that wants it. Just kind of shameless plug a little bit. If you go to InMotionHosting.com/WordSesh and enter in the coupon code WordSesh, you will get 50% off of hosting. So come on, jump over, and we'll hook you up. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.